lines all the way down. Yeah, sorry. I was covering string, and I'm not a string. I'm technically a combination of all four of these.
String for text. Converting from one type to another is called casting.
Oh, converting variables. Okay. It's important to note that while you don't need to type your variables. If you type them, the code runs faster. Same with function return types. On the technical, they're faster. Interesting. Also, I missed something here. That's kind of important.
Or int for whole numbers, float for numbers with decimals, and string for text. Converting from one type to another is called casting.
Casting.
For example, we can cast an integer into a string. So if we have a number that is equal to 42, and we have some text, which is a string.
I knew it! I knew that was going to be a thing. Okay.
Well, then we can add the number to this text, but we convert it into a string by writing str for string, and then the variable inside of the parentheses. And if we print this, it works fine. We can do a similar thing to say convert a float into an integer. So if we have a variable called pi that is equal to 3.14, then we can convert this into an integer by going int pi, and let's print this. And it prints 3, a whole number. Note, however, that this automatically truncates the number. It does not round. It simply gets rid of the decimals. So 3.9 also results in 3. Some other data structures that are really common in GDScript are vector 2 and 3. Vector 2 stores...
Yeah, I've seen that a lot, but I don't know what vector 2 exactly means. I've seen it a lot. I don't know.
Two floats, x and y, and vector 3 stores 3 floats, x, y, and z. These are most commonly used for positions, so I can create a variable.
Oh, okay, so like, if I want to place a position of a character in like a 2D space, I can establish that, hey, the coordinates of this 0.0 by 0.0, that is like literally at the center of the screen. That's what I'm guessing, because of quadrants of 2, yeah.
Called position with some coordinates. I can then modify one of the components, so position.x plus equals 2 adds 2 to the x component, and then we can print the whole thing. And this gives a vector 3 of 5 minus 10.
So I feel like a really important point that I can like consider for this is like, for example, if I'm making like an RPG Maker-esque game, and I need to determine the position of where the character appears in the next screen, I can like pinpoint the exact coordinates and say, hey, the player is supposed to spawn here after going through this door, so that it just like connects to the next screen. That's what I'm guessing that I could use the what's it called? Yeah, for the vector 2 and vector 3. I'm not so sure what vector 3 does. Because, like, vector 2, I'm assuming it's in a 2D plane. So, would vector 3 be in a 3D plane? So, like, X, Y, and Z coordinates? That's what I'm thinking. Same thing but 3. Okay. I guessed right. Cool. I don't know if I would ever make a 3D game. I mean, a 3D game by myself. I have contributed and helped with a 3D game in my day job. But solo, no, I have not. Oh, well, I have with Unity, but that was a long time ago, yeah.
5. Now, by default, GDScript is what we call dynamically typed. This means that we don't define what type of data a variable can hold when we declare it, which we've been using so far. This makes it fast to create variables and flexible because we can reassign data of another type at will. However, it is also more prone to error and less performant than static typing. Luckily, GDScript allows us to statically type any variables we want.
Dynamic and static. I'm trying to like think of examples of when I would use static versus dynamic. I feel like dynamic works best when you're dealing with health being lower due to damage, MP, stamina, if you have those for your characters. But something that you want static would be like how much health that you have total. How much MP do you have total? How much stamina do you have total? because the dynamic part is probably like it changes constantly. But there are certain elements of those numbers that you want to stay the same, or at least like stay at a consistent rate. So that's when I feel like, okay, you need static or even dynamic, but like again, the prone to error stuff. That's a guess. And yes, I will be doing a lot of guessing because how I learned is like I listen to something and I try to digest it in my brain by being able to connect that concept to something else. When I connect concepts in my head, it's easier for me to retain. I can't just like read something and be like, "Oh, now I know it." No. I need to absorb it first, really digest it, and then be able to apply something. Once I'm able to apply what I learned, that's when I know I actually learned something. Learning is not just absorbing something, it's being able to apply it. I'm very, very strict on that. Also, where is it? Okay. I added a stream marker so that, hey, maybe I can have that as a clip. Potentially. Okay.
Used totally based on preference. To statically type a variable, we simply add the type when declaring it. So here, if we have a damage variable, we can specify the type and then set the value. So now this variable will always stay an integer. We can even have Godot automatically determine the data type by simply writing := and then the default value. This is called inferred typing, and the result is exactly the same. The type is still static. Godot simply recognizes that 15 is a whole number and sets the variable to a type of int. This also means that the variable cannot change to another type. If we try to set it to a string, we get an error. Now, adding export in front of a variable will allow us to set it using the inspector. The value that we set in the script will just be a default value. So if we save this and select our node, we can set a value in the inspector. If we print our damage, we can see that this updates in our game. And we can always press the circular arrow to revert back to the default. Now sometimes you want to define a variable that cannot change. For this we use constants. So I'll write const for constant. We'll call it gravity. As you can see, it's standard practice to name constants with capital letters. And we'll set it equal to -9.81. Now we can use this like any other variable, but we cannot change it. If we try to do that,
Cannot change it. Okay. So can you set a static variable within a function? And if you try to apply it to a different function, would you have to make a new variable just for that function? Or is it best to just like take it out and then have it like outside the function like this? I wonder what are the use cases for it.
it throws an error. And that's it for variables. Great job. Functions.
Oh boy, function time. We dealt with this a lot in previous Godot projects, where we're like, okay, this function does this function interacts with this. Ugh. Honestly, just looking at these two things, like variables 2.0 and then functions 2.0, I'm like, ooh, this is gonna be a lot already. And I need to absorb them. Because, like, look at that, it takes up so much space for function.
Functions are the bread and butter of programming. They allow you to bundle up your code in small
You know, bread and butter is actually one of my favorite breakfast items. I really like kaya toast. So when I was in Singapore for a bit, I was able to have kaya toast where it had like this, the kaya spread, which is a coconut spread, and then butter, and then a poached egg and toast. It was so good. I'm so excited that I'm going to Asia soon and I can have that again potentially if I find the right place for it. Ah man, I am going to eat so much while I'm there. It's gonna be insane. I will post photos in Blue Sky about where I'm going though. And go from there.
usable packages. So far we've been using some of Godot's built-in functions like ready and input. Notice how these are prefixed with an underscore. This is to show that they are not activated or called by us, but by the engine itself.
Oh, so that's what the underscore means. Okay, they're called by the engine itself, so it's like automatic. But if it's like something that the player activates, you do not have the underscore. Okay.
But we can actually make our own functions and use them to do really cool things. Common functions to making games are things like jump, die, shoot, and respawn. And making a function is actually really easy. Let's make a function for jumping. So we'll write func.
I knew something that would happen. I knew it was gonna get a little funky here. Honestly, like, if my model was moving, you would see how exasperated I am. And the reason why I've been exasperated in the first place, for some reason, somebody visited my place in the evening. And I'm like, why? Why the evening? Why can't you just visit at any other human friendly time? Evening time is not the time to meet strangers. Not my jam. I want to be alone. I want to just do my own thing. I want to stream. So when I heard that someone was just gonna come in, I was like, huh? Why? Why? I was very, very frustrated, to say the least.
Then the name of our function.
I love. So one of my favorite things in videos is when it just abruptly cuts like that, and you're just like, okay, you just accept that happened, and then you just continue on.
Function, open and close parentheses, and a colon. Then in here we'll put all of our code for jumping. So we could add an upwards force, play a funny sound, and a jump animation. For now we'll just print.
Did that say play a boing 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 boings? Gosh. Game dev is just very silly programmer type, honestly. Play jump animation. Okay.
Jump. But nothing is currently triggering or calling our function. Let's call it whenever we press the action we made earlier. So func underscore input event, and if our action was pressed, then we call our jump function by writing jump followed by open and close parentheses. And now when I press space, it displays jump. And at this point, I encourage you to add the sound effect yourself. Boing, boing, boing. A lot of fun.
I knew he's gonna be a little silly there. Honestly, watching Brackies gives me ideas for my own video content. Like, being able to have some serious time, but then balance it with a little bit of silliness, I'm like, I could incorporate that. I could do that myself. And that's why it's important to watch other content creators outside of VTubing so that you can get inspiration. Because no matter where you look, you will get inspired somewhere. It doesn't have to be in VTubing. That just saying. Just saying, you don't need to be inspired by other VTubers to do VTuber content. Just saying. It's not really like a hot take, but it's just a fact. You know, like if you want to expand, you gotta take an inspiration outside of your comfort zone.
And to be had here. Now this already makes our code more readable and reusable. But right now our function is just a simple command. We call it and it does some things. However, we can actually use functions for much more than this. They can have inputs and outputs. Let me explain. I like to think of functions as machines. Take for example this coffee maker. Just like the name implies, it performs a function to make coffee. To do this, however, it needs some input. Some water, a filter, and some ground coffee. With this, it performs its function and then spills out an
Quality is so good. What the?
output. Delicious coffee.
You know, it's really unfortunate that I can't enjoy coffee like a normal person. I just can't. When I have coffee, I kind of turn a little bit buzzed, and I'm like, that's not what I want.
In code, we call the input we give our function parameters, and the output is called returns. So let's make a function that adds together two numbers.
No! No! Not the end! No! Shh! No! No! Oh my goodness. It is ad time, clearly. Ah! Okay. That means we're taking a little break while the ad plays, because I'm like, huh? You love ad breaks here. Okay, apparently this ad is about, like, audio editing, and I'm like, huh. Ever since I revealed, quote unquote, my voice on Blue Sky, I've been getting some interesting attention. And I can clearly see people want me to do content with my voice, and I don't know how to feel about that because that was not my intention. I just happen to sound like this. Like, geez Louise. Oh, okay. Okay, we're back. We're back. We're back. We're so back.
And then inside of our parentheses, we add the
Hey,
parameter.
Lunar. Welcome on in. Hope you've been doing well. I'm just learning more about functions and like how to make them. Cause like in my previous projects, I have made functions, but do I know how to make functions by myself yet? No. I just had examples of functions and just going from there.
So number 1 we'll call num1, and the second number we'll call num2. Then inside our function, we can add these together and store them in a result variable. So we'll set that equal to num1 plus num2. And for now, let's just print the result. Then in ready, let's try calling this function. So we'll call add. We'll give it the first number, 3. And the second one, let's do 8. And let's actually call it again. So let's do a harder one. Let's add 245 with 111. And indeed, it prints 3 plus 8, which is 11, and 356, which is the result of our second calculation. So here we've created a function with 2.
Alright, so looking at this, I'm going to stick with the RPG example of health, MP, and stamina, right? That, you can literally make a function to define how does an HP potion impact the health, right? So what I could do here, I could just type function, then HP underscore potion, and then I add the numbers here and such. I could also call a variable here, like I can have variable health equals health plus plus a randomized variable between 7 and 10 HP. It calculates the randomization, and then it prints the result, and then that's how much HP I acquire. I could simplify it further to just be like, oh, the HP always makes the person recover 50 health points each time. I can go from there. But if I want something like Baldur's Gate 3, where it has a more randomized health aspect, I can also have like I can have a randomizing